I can remember in the 90s with Filmmaker magazine actually printing some of the distribution paths that people would make across the country and the various outlets that you could actually, here's an outlet that will screen your film, and you would go actually in a car driving from screening to screening. And there are also stories of filmmakers taking screens with them and actually traveling just across the country in that way. And we even actually did a story on a filmmaker in Canada who would go on his bicycle every summer with a screen and stop in cities along the way. So luckily, things don't need to be that hands-on or feet on with some of the new opportunities. So today's panel is going to address that shift a little bit. What are the new tools offering? What are the possibilities that you have now as a maker? But also thinking about moving maybe into that space between amateur, where you're really making work for a fan-based community, or thinking about your peer network and making it really for the intrinsic worth that we've been talking a lot about, and thinking maybe more about that middle space also being a place, again, where you can recoup some of the funds that went into your project, build an audience maybe around a political topic or another issue. So our panelists all have a good amount of experience in this area. They've been working in the field in different capacities for a number of years. And I'm going to introduce each one of them. And then the workshop is a workshop, so I really want to make it interactive with answering your questions as directly as we can, and having this be really helpful in terms of taking advantage of the expertise that's here. So first we have Jonathan Wells. And I have to say that Jonathan and I have worked together for many years, so my bio will be biased. He's the founder of the traveling international media festival ResFest and co-founder of the Res Media Group, which is devoted to creating communities of makers around the world through events and screenings. He's currently working on a new venture called Flux, which is a global creative community where artists, filmmakers, writers, designers, and dreamers have a platform to share their work and collaborate with others. I want to show you the website. Next to Jonathan is Leda Malika. Leda is the Vice President of Production at Brave New Films, a company devoted to creating a just America and deploying cutting-edge new internet video campaigns to challenge corporate media and spark political action. Leda is also an award-winning documentary filmmaker in her own right. She's produced numerous short films, scripted and reality television, interactive video, and online games. And her film, Pilar, won Best Documentary Feature at the 2006 Vision Film Festival and at the 2005 Real Heart Film Festival. So let me show you the... So this is the Brave New Film site. Next to Leda is Carol Crow. Carol has extensive experience in film and television acquisition, distribution, marketing, development, and production with several companies, including MovieCore and Aaron Spelling Productions. She is now the president of the short film distribution company Apollo Cinema, an international distributor of short films founded in 1997. Apollo distributes shorts of all types and genres to an array of outlets and platforms, including television stations, internet sites, airlines, theaters, military bases, home video, and DVD. So we're going to start by having each of the speakers sort of talk about their company and their mandate and the kinds of work that they're doing and the audiences that they're trying to reach, and then we'll open it up for questions. So Jonathan, do you want to start?
Sure. So I just want to give a little bit of background on where I came from and why I'm so excited about this summit this weekend. In 1995, I co-founded the Low Res Film and Video Festival, and we were basically, the aim was to showcase people using digital video tools. At the time, festivals really shunned anything that was, there was really a strong divide between video and film, and video being looked down upon. There was a filmmaker who I knew who actually called us on, like, well, how can you call it at a film festival if you're projecting everything in video? 2 years later, I founded ResFest and co-founded Res Magazine. This was in San Francisco, and very quickly the model of the festival was to tour the festival. We screened in Los Angeles and San Francisco and New York and London, and then quickly grew internationally. And the festival was a place to see work that you really couldn't see anywhere else. Filmmakers were making things on their computers and had never seen their work projected on anything bigger than their computer screen. So very quickly we built a community of people who are really excited about this new technology as a way to make different types of films, not just using the video camera to recreate what had been done for 100 years before with the film camera. And again, festivals like at the time Sundance in Toronto and Cannes wouldn't show films that were shot with video cameras. So the festival quickly grew, and this was all kind of pre-YouTube, so there was a way we were showing a lot of things that were music videos and short films from Europe and Japan and elsewhere that couldn't be seen here. And some of the filmmakers who we championed very early on were Mike Mills and Chris Cunningham and Spike Jonze and Michel Gondry, before they made feature films, before they were widely known. And we always showed these works side by side with the works of unknowns. So one year in the same program, we had a student film from RISD that won our audience prize. So we always showed things on an equal footing. I did ResFest for 10 years, and sadly it came to an end in 2006, and I've recently started a new company called Flux. And the idea of Flux is to build upon a lot of the relationships we have globally from doing ResFest, and we are curating events and commissioning original films and collaborating with filmmakers and artists around the world. We're starting a new screening event at the Hammer Museum beginning in March. It's a free event showcasing short films and music videos and having a lot of guests speak about that work. So that's what I want to. Thank you.
I started with Brave New Films about a year ago, and before I started, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the documentaries that they were making, but they paved the way sort of for the house party distribution model for documentary filmmaking, and had wild success with that, with Outfoxed and Uncovered and Iraq for Sale and the Walmart movie. And then Robert Greenwald, who I'm here to represent, decided that things needed to happen faster, and that part of what was so successful about those films was that they were so timely and that people were really hungry for that information. So he decided to just start doing the short films online last year. And we just jumped in, and we ended up making about 52 shorts last year, 52 campaigns really, and had over 10 million viewers of those shorts, and it was beyond our expectations of success. And this year we're planning on doubling that. And so it's been really, really exciting to be able to make these things and put them out there and have like real effects right away, where you're seeing Bill O'Reilly really mad at us the next day, and just like actually seeing the effects of your work immediately. It's been the most satisfying thing I've ever done, and I think it's really exciting. I grew up with a mother who's a filmmaker, and she was always saying, the medium is the message, the medium is the message, when I was a little girl, and I was like, what's she talking about? And then, now I'm like, wow, this is really happening. You really can, it's a two-way medium now, and all of the implications of that are so cool and so exciting. So that's what we're doing, and I could talk about it forever, but I don't know where you guys all are at, but we'll take questions and talk about it.
Hi, I'm Carol Crow with Apollo Cinema. I own a short film distribution company. We've been in business for 10 years, so we distribute worldwide, in all media worldwide, airlines, television. The reason why I'm part of this panel is because a few years ago I got together some short films and said, how can we get them into theaters around the country? And so I'm kind of here to explain how you can get a program of shorts into theaters or anything, and basically all the theaters showed them on DVD, so I could bypass having to have a 35 millimeter film print, and it was a great learning experience for me, and I had a passion for it. And we did the Oscar-nominated shorts, the live-action and animated short films. In the first year we were in 12 theaters, and then that grew to over 100. Now Magnolia Pictures is releasing the films, and they're paying the filmmakers huge advances, and it's a little disappointing because they're not really that many more theaters than the way we were doing it. But they basically, if you look at their website, I realize a lot of these independent distributors are getting the films out there on DVDs throughout the country. That, and then the past couple of years, we did the documentary short films that were nominated for an Oscar. And it's great and easy to get a program like that out there, because whether you think the films are good or not, you just have the Oscar, stamp on it. And so there's, the theater owners know how to market it, and so that's been very fun and exciting.
Great, thanks, Carol. I wanted to get a sense from you. How many of you are makers looking for a way to distribute your work? Yeah, okay. Let's see. All right, so we'll definitely try to address that. Why don't we just start with some questions? Do you have questions for our speakers? Is there anything you want to start with?
Well, Ryan and I are really big into also helping people distribute their work online and kind of teaching. And I feel like it's almost like everything a media activist has ever wanted is here, with the internet, and it's really awesome. And it's been filmed. I think it's a great example of also raising its money in a very distributed fashion. Whereas, a filmmaker needing money has always been a problem, and now it's pretty easy. You can say, I need $5,000, and here's my PayPal account, and if you're good at organizing, it's really easy to get its money. So I was wondering if you could maybe talk about your experience with how much money you guys are raising, or if you could talk about the numbers or how that works.
Well, there's a lot of different levels to it. I mean, the main thing I think the success that we've had is due to is the coalition building that we do. We have people that are on our staff full-time who are working with progressive groups around the country about specific issues related to each project. So every time we do a project, we don't really do it. I mean, we do some that are just stuff we want to do, but mostly it's because, we do stuff that matters to other people and to other groups and that we know is useful to other people. And I think that's a really important point for us. And I don't have answers for how it works for just regular independent filmmakers who are making, indie dramas and stuff. It's a whole different thing. But for us and for the political world, it's like if you reach out to those groups, and tell them what you work with them to figure out what it is, and then put it out with them, it automatically is going to get to the front page of YouTube, and then you get a whole other audience. And that, because of those numbers that we've been getting, we've been able to do our fundraising.
Are you raising the money specifically from your audience, or are you also getting grants?
We're doing both, yeah. We have.
Is there a percentage?
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly grants that we're getting from foundations, but there's a huge amount that we're making from just our subscribers and our viewers and our people who support us. I mean, I can't remember the exact number. I think it's like $30,000 a month or something that we're making just online, which is amazing. We don't have any advertising at all. And it's because people care about what we're doing. And I think that's what's, again, really different about what we're doing. And I have so many filmmaker friends who are like, I want to raise the money online, and it's just really different if it's a drama. But people are just hungry for this, and it's such a need. And so people give us their money. But I think for us, it's really, there's a lot of strategic thinking going on about when and how we're presenting what we're doing, and when we're asking for money and how we're asking for it. And a lot of it right now is related to what's going on in the news cycle. So, when we have a success, we make sure we let everybody know, hey, this is a big success. Look what happened. Help us do it again. The move on model, basically.
So you asked for money for specific causes or campaigns?
Yeah. Yep. And we try to just be, super honest and upfront and transparent about what we're doing and where that money is going. And that seems to work the best.
Do you also work with the organizations that you said you're working with? Do they also
Fundraise with our videos?
Well,
Is that the question?
You work with other, progressive organizations
Yeah.
and stuff. Do they also fundraise for the videos and stuff that they're interested in?
I think a couple of them have started to do that now, and that I'm sure we're going to be seeing that more and more. But no, generally, no.
I was interested in hearing from Carol about airline distribution. How does that happen?
You mean into movie theaters, or?
No, did you say you show things on planes?
Yeah, well, there's airline buyers, and there's airline conferences where you can go to and meet with the buyers, and they show them in cycles of 1 month to 3 months, and they just pay a flat fee. You really don't have to worry about so much music rights in a sense because that's under public play. You should have your music cleared though. But I guess that's the best way to explain it. You can sell to Virgin Atlantic, British Airways, Air Canada. Exactly, exactly. Those are called I think they're called ancillary rights. And yeah, so it doesn't tie into TV or theatrical. Usually if you do have a big release, they want it released on, movie theaters first and then on the airlines and then television. But in the world of shorts, you could do it simultaneously pretty much. Does that answer your question? Is that okay? Okay. You can look up the WAEA, World Airline Entertainment Association, and that's a wealth of information. It used to be that you had to join, pay $500 to get the book, but it's much easier to find that information online. Air Canada is run by SpaFax. It's what it's called. You kind of find out the names of the different organizations, or sometimes there's a buyer who will buy for British Airways and another airline, smaller airlines. Like we sell to a Pakistani Airlines, they're over here in Koreatown. Get a call from them once in a while. Some of them pay okay, and some of them don't pay that well, but a lot of times it's the simplest thing. It's one little piece of paper, like a memo, you sign it, and then they just send you money, and they tend to relicense it because they're constantly having to program stuff on the airlines because they'll cut back on food. They'll never cut back on in-flight entertainment because that makes your time go faster. And Virgin Atlantic has the most amazing in-flight entertainment, and they cycle through. They'll do a shorts channel, or they try to do a short to show in front of a feature, and just to have cutting-edge stuff. And the problem is, though, right when you get in with a buyer, they leave because I think it's a lot of burnout. So it can be an exhausting process. Just when you think you've got it. Right now, a lot of them will take DVD, or they just want beta or digibeta. A lot of them generally needs to be family friendly. They also love stuff with no dialogue. They'll take so many different things. There's one guy who does the perfect haircut, or this or that, or the exercise videos for your feet. So you can think outside the box, all these different angles. Also, a lot of them will give you play if you're willing to give your stuff for free. They're looking for everyone to give them stuff for free because you do have a captive audience for a certain amount of time. So, and some of them have 30 channels, or some have one channel, but you're guaranteed someone's going to watch your stuff on that plane, depending what you're into. And just to add one other thing, a lot of them will say, okay, well, we'll let you show the programming on our plane, and you can try to make money by getting a sponsor for, showing your thing. I know the Sundance Channel at one point had something, I think, on Northwest Airlines or one of those airlines where they weren't getting paid anything by the airline, but they were getting a channel to show stuff. So there's all different ways to think about it. And another thing we've done with Virgin Atlantic, we're can you give us a free ticket if we let you show a film for a while? And that's worked out too. So.
Actually, the question stemming from that, in a world where there is so much that's free and accessible, what would you say to filmmakers or video makers who are not wanting to be in that area, really, in that space where everything is for free, where you're showing your material on YouTube? And how are filmmakers being received now in that context?
Well, for me, I'm a distributor, so I can't give anything away for free because I'm not doing a service to my filmmakers. And then for me, it's a lot of work. I mean, so much work to deliver stuff and then to get nothing. And then a lot of them want to pay percentages. You never see that money. If you see it, it's a joke. It's 2 cents. That's been my experience with various internet companies. Not that they're all that way. Maybe, I just haven't gotten good deals. So I've tried that only if a filmmaker wanted to do that, but I try to get money up front. And I've had every day I get calls from cell phone companies, this company, well, but we have $20 million in advertising. I'm well, then you can pay something for the content, because without the content, you have nothing. So we're running into that all the time. It seems to be there's lulls throughout the years in shorts, and all of a sudden there's a resurgence, and now suddenly there's all these companies coming out of Russia that are buying short films. So just when you think, oh, it's all dried up, something new reinvents itself, like the internet, years ago. 10 years ago is kind of when I got into it, and that's when the internet was huge, and people were just throwing out money left and right. It was crazy. So Now it's harder to get money out of a lot of the different internet sites, or a lot of filmmakers are screwing themselves a little bit, because if you want to be on the what's it called, iTunes, he's like, well, if they put it on iTunes, why am I going to buy it to put it on iTunes? So some people are putting their stuff on YouTube so quickly that it kind of does shut the doors a little bit. If that buyer's going to go searching, you just Google something and it usually comes up right away. So just whether you hold off on. So for me, I never give anything away for free. You know, everybody's worth their wage, worth something. Okay, whether it's a penny or $50 or that's my personal point of view. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question for Leila. Have you moved completely past the home party model? I mean, is it entirely online, or are you also doing offline distribution either through that or cable or other efforts?
Well, there's a lot of talk about a few things, like we're talking about packaging a bunch of the shorts that we've done and putting them on Brave New Theaters and having house parties where people get together around a particular issue and watch a bunch of shorts, and organizing some house parties that way. There's also talk about like working with somebody like Emerging Pictures, who are doing digital distribution to theaters and universities around the country, and us packaging some of our shorts that way. So yeah, we are talking about doing other kinds, but right now it's mainly just, for the past year, it's just been online. But yeah, we are talking about doing a lot of different stuff like that.
Can I jump in again? How significant for all of you is that sort of groups of people getting together and actually watching material when everything is so easily available to watch alone at home? What significance is that group dynamic in having people come together, and for each of you in your specific kind of realms?
I think it's to me, it's super important. One of the challenges in programming films, I think YouTube, again, a lot of the work that I talked about that was pretty impossible to see, obscure music video from Japan, all of a sudden there's stuff showing up on YouTube before it's officially released, where it's clearly coming out of like the post house and someone doesn't know that it got leaked. So that becomes, for someone programming and curating film programming, it becomes more of a challenge, because what incentive does someone have to pay to go to a screening or even go out of the house if they can find it all on YouTube? So more and more we're trying to identify things that we can secure with the filmmaker, a premiere, and that they're actually there, and you're creating more of an experience where it's not just a screening, but you're hearing from the creator, and there's also a reception and a way to interact and network with people. And we've had a lot of success over the years with people being inspired by the work and meeting other creators at our screenings and then going on to make new things. So, I mean, to me, it's super important, that community.
I mean, I think for me, I mean, I wasn't with Brave New Films during the doc features, but I had house parties and screened them, and I loved it, and I thought it was amazing, and I hope that we find ways to do that again with our shorts. I think it's really important, and especially for political organizing, and to have neighborhoods coming together around these issues, what could be better? So yeah, I hope that we accomplish that this year.
I guess my experience, it's more me trying to get the shorts into the mainstream, playing them theatrically. For me, that was so exciting, fulfilling. And I've dealt with theater owners throughout the country who they have a lot of independent theaters, or they might be a multiplex, but they have one screen in the theater that they get to program themselves. And they're really excited and into it and always looking for something new. And they all talk to each other because they're all trying to do something cutting edge, but a guy in San Francisco is really not competing with the market with a guy in Iowa. So they talk to each other like, oh, have you tried this? It's something different and unique to get people into their movie theaters, because they are competing with the A-list films of, Star Wars, this or that. So how do I get them to go down the street to the mom and pop theater that might be one screen, or some of them have, like a little video screen that they can do smaller stuff, or maybe they'll have 30 seats in the house, because it's hard to seat 500 people, in a theater, to have them come out for some independent film. So you have to think in that, area, that arena, that they're giving up their theater to you. So, and for me, I didn't fly around and micromanage everybody. I couldn't. I was trying to be in like 100 theaters at one time, and I had to hope that they put their best foot forward and So did I, and we got percentage of box office, and we were able to get in everywhere by putting them. Everyone played it on DVD. It's amazing. You go to Lemley, everywhere. They all play all the films on DVD now, so you can do it very inexpensively. Get your films out there.
Great. Jen?
Yeah, I got another question. You know, I've been finding that, like, I went to ResFest in Manhattan. It's been a long time. It was when you couldn't see any of that stuff. It was really exciting to see, especially for someone like me that was just learning to find the pro. Very exciting. But I feel like, you know, times have changed, and it's almost like our community, a lot of us have stopped thinking about, okay, I'm going to make this movie, and then I'm going to spend time delivering it. Now it's more like I'm making a brand. Like I'm going to make a lot of shorts about a niche, and that's going to be my thing. And I think like Red vs. Blue is a good example that I first saw. Are you guys finding that is changing, that creators are coming to you and not making movies as much anymore, and making more like small pieces about the same thing?
I mean, there are definitely people who are doing kind of serialized things, and even I think on the music video side, a lot more of this kind of conceptual thing of doing a series of videos for a whole album. There's like this right now. There's a group called NASA, and they're collaborating with illustrators to people like Shepard Fairey and Sage Vaughn to make original pieces for each track on a record. So it will, in the end, they're looking at it like I can have this kind of screening to promote it, but in the end they'll have a finished package of all of these pieces together. It's called NASA.
Yes.
There was a guy from Miro yesterday in some of the panels, and he showed an example of how they were able to distribute HD over the internet, different compression devices that are available. So my question is, you talk about getting this work out in DVD form and versus YouTube. Well, YouTube is a low-res type situation that's good for putting out ideas, but in terms of quality and viewing experience is really lacking. So have you thought about the possibility of using the internet as a portal for high-definition work and for hooking up computers to flat screens and seeing it in that sense, rather than sending out DVDs and not
I want that. I mean, I'm in my ideal world, YouTube is going to start using those compressions, and they're going to change their ways, and they are going to start monetizing things in a new, inventive way, and all of the content and all of the content providers are going to start seeing that money. I think that's what's going to happen. I think they're just figuring it out. And yeah, I mean, I think people should speak out, and we should push them to care about the quality. I mean, it doesn't, it's weird because it's like it doesn't matter for what we're doing so much, the production value, but on the other hand, we want to make stuff that, the stuff that we are making that has higher production value, we want to be able to show it. So I think YouTube is going to get it together for that.
It's evolving, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to change. This will be the dinosaurs one day.
Exactly.
That's all of us, what we saw and what we were watching.
I think it's all headed that way.
Sort of building from that, can you guys talk a little bit about how aesthetics and kind of genres are changing? You talked about moving from videos to campaigns, and along with that comes you don't need to have a certain look or aesthetic kind of value. Can you all talk a little bit about that? How has that shifted over the last couple of years? And what are viewers willing to look at, and what are the genres that are evolving because viewers are willing to look at things that maybe aren't as high quality?
Well, for me, as I said, I'm mainstream, and our films have to pass quality control all the time, so we can't show, grainy, crappy stuff. Or all that stuff has to look really good, and it's got to have some sort of a story, beginning, a middle, and end, or an ambiguous ending, whatever. But that's what the buyers go for. for what I'm doing, but it's very different than what you guys are doing, so.
Could you just, on that, maybe are filmmakers coming to you and are they surprised by that, or do you really attract maybe people who are coming out of film school and have that expectation already?
No, they have that expectation because I'm not getting stuff off of YouTube that people are trying to distribute because they wouldn't, that doesn't go any further. So we still have your traditional filmmaker at the various universities around the country are doing it on their own. I think you do see more people independently doing more short films than you did years ago, just because it's so inexpensive and they can do it all on video. And it used to be that you had to have a film print. Those days are gone, and that's where the huge expense was and all the post-production for that. And everyone can kind of skirt that now, and they can do it on high def or whichever way. So, and a lot of people can edit it on their own system. The key is you can't make your DVDs on your own home system. Usually they have problems playing elsewhere, and I guess I keep saying DVD because that's the main way people still are getting their films out there, because film festivals don't have a feed really where they can get HD, at least not that I know of. Maybe they do and I don't know about it, but are they starting to? Yeah, so.
So Leda and Jonathan, anything on the aesthetics, genres, kind of new things that you're seeing?
Well, my boyfriend is a DP, and we argue every day about this because I'm working in like the opposite medium right now, and we work together on like super high and high production value shorts. That's what I do for fun, as my hobby now. But yeah, it's a really interesting question. I mean, what are we going to do? It's just like, it's an age-old question. If you've got a really good story and you have something to say, you can say it, with a camera phone, and people are going to care and they're going to want to see it, and that's valuable. And then there's just the opposite end of the spectrum isn't going to go away. Many of us care all about the way things look, and we want a certain production value. That's not going to go away either. In my ideal world, at Brave New Films, I wish we could just do it all. I wish we could make high production value documentaries that go to the theater. I wish we could do live events. I wish we could do the shorts. I feel like it's a multi-platform world, and if we want to reach the widest audience, you need to think about it that way. And ideally you are, and ideally you could have the resources to work on all these platforms at the same time. Because the audiences are getting fragmented, and there are certain people that are like, screw it, I'm only going to stay home and watch it on YouTube, and other people are like, no, I'll only go to the ArcLight. And you want to reach as many people as you can, so you have to think about this multi-platform world, and it's going to present a lot of crazy challenges for all of us.
I agree that the story is key, but I've always been really excited about people telling stories in new ways, things like animated documentary and reanimating of still photos, sampling along the lines of things that EBN pioneered.
It's a gimmick. It's a new twist. Then someone will have that one thing that everyone talks about, and then more people will follow. So.
I'm a professor here in the cinema school, and we have a lot of debate and tension right now between the school's policy and what the students want to do. And the school's position is, you cannot give it away for free ever, or you're killing all future chances. So how would you fall on that? What would do you think this administration's right, or do you think the students are right who want to just upload their stuff?
Well, for me, I know USC owns all the student films, right? And I know NYU, the filmmakers own it, so they can do what they want. I think it depends. I guess a filmmaker wants it to be seen. I don't think they really care if they're going to make money, because honestly, whatever money they make is so minuscule. It's just icing on the cake. No one's getting rich out there. There's the odd filmmaker out there whose films have sold over and over. I guess on my website now is George Lucas in Love, which is an old film, but it's like the Energizer Bunny. It keeps going and going and going, and every year you get calls. And are those guys seeing checks for tens of thousands of dollars every year? No. You know what I mean? It might be $300, $600, but it keeps ticking. But every filmmaker, I say, you know what? You're going to meet some guy who's going to brag he's made all this money. Come on. It's just icing on the cake if it can be seen and shown somewhere, but there's just not a ton of money in it. I think it's great I think every filmmaker should make a website immediately for themselves. They're crazy not to promote their film. And some, as I said, they want to get it seen, and there might not be money in it, and it is terrible if the film school gets in the way of that. I guess that's what they signed up for. So then they need to make their own film independently, and then they can do what they want. But otherwise, it's like, welcome to the studio world. So.
Does anybody else want to comment on that?
I want to say that I'm really shocked that you just said USC owns the student films. That and that you wouldn't encourage them to put stuff up for free as well, because I went to film school, art school, and I studied film video, and that was before stuff was being put online really, and now, you know, Jay and I teach video blogging to filmmakers and anyone. And we're just like, put it out there, because I mean, like, I've made my whole career because I put every single thing online for free. You know, like,
Yeah, well,
that's
let me-
why I'm here right now.
Let me clarify, this is an extremely unpopular policy.
No, it is.
Isn't there a change out there, some parameters for film students to put stuff on YouTube?
That, just on
A closed channel.
Like a snippet. I think they'll let you do a snippet.
Closed network for
For
the
studios?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I was going to ask the panel too, I mean, is that, I think you hit on a really key thing, and I'm not from film, but I teach in film, I'm from rhetoric, but the point with scholars, and I think with filmmakers, is, you know, your cultural capital is to get your name out there.
Exactly. And it's a calling card. It's a calling card because, you know what, we all don't want to make shorts. I don't know, maybe some do. Every day, a lot of you want to go on to making features and get it seen. And what's a film in a case, you know, you're carrying around? It's nothing. It like blow off the dust and let some people see it. So.
Well, and I was intrigued by you're saying, you know, the airlines programming, so wouldn't it make sense for these filmmakers to make shorts for the airlines for a lot of people?
Tell you the truth, I think it'd be easy for USC to say, okay, they've got gazillions of films, they do, and all the rights are cleared, everything, and that's the key, is to have your music and all your rights cleared. They probably could go to Airlines to say, give us a channel, you know, but maybe the airline wouldn't pay them, but then USC might not want to go through, it's a lot of work, and someone's got to have a passion to do it, so.
The other part of it is the argument that you can't get accepted to a lot of festivals if you distribute it on.
You know what, that's what they say, but half the time, when you apply for the festival, yeah, you're not on the internet, so you're not lying on the application. Hate to say that, but then it depends. It depends if what you're doing, I think, would be called a festival, right? Then that's different, it's traveling, maybe. But also, you could tell the filmmaker, take it off the internet. We had a film that was on iFilm at the time, and like HBO wanted to buy it. Yeah. And when I got the call that HBO was interested, I immediately called. It was Pearl Harbor 2, Pearl-Mageddon, and I said, is it on iFilm? I don't want to know if it is or not, but if it is, just make it disappear immediately, get it down so we can do a sale and we don't have to lie, you know? So it's like, it also you don't have to tell them everything.
Carol, there's still people putting up walls. Like I know at Sundance, you can have a film that was shot in DV or whatever, but they want you to deliver it in one of their approved formats, like HD Cam or Windows Media HD. Like they have, which are not inexpensive to often convert and for that. And then with the Oscars, don't they require you to not have it on the internet, and also that it has to have a qualifying run where it has to show in one of their approved formats?
Yes, it does. It has to show in a movie theater in LA or win a certain festival for the animation and live action. The documentaries have to do like a 7-day consecutive run in like 3 different cities. So yeah.
But like you couldn't qualify for the Oscars if it was projected off of a DVD. Like they have these.
That's true. And then there are some filmmakers that have been on the internet and they haven't gotten caught. And then someone at the Academy might have, not wanted a certain person on and done some research and got them disqualified. That's happened too. So.
Yeah. Can I
Sure.
add one more thing is but then the other part of the rationale, and this goes back to the panel on Friday about IP, is that has to do with errors and omissions insurance, and that that's why USC needs to hold the copyright, because
they have a blanket policy.
Yeah, and that they can't. Yeah, that's the other protective thing. So it's interesting. I mean, there was a lot of relevant discussions at this point on Friday as well.
Well, most of the TV stations have a blanket E&O policy, and I know in the movie theaters, they don't need E&O, because if there's a problem, you talk to Greg Lemley. He's like, if someone calls and says there's a music problem or a clearance problem or a fight, I immediately make the screen go black. I'm not going to get into that. And in the world of theatrical, you never sign an agreement. It's all verbal, the whole thing. It's like a whole other world. They say the closest thing to it is the diamond trade, you know? Yeah, with the Hasidic Jews, whatever, that's what they say. It's like this whole incestuous little world, because the first time I'm like, well, do I get a contract? What? We don't have time for that. And it's true, because everything's by the skin of their teeth, within 2 weeks out. There's never a contract. So now, thank God, with email, you could say, a minimum guarantee versus percentage of box office, but that's it. And then everything's in good faith. Everything's in good faith that I'm actually going to deliver something, that hopefully the rights are cleared. They don't know. They don't ask. But they'll never say, are the music rights cleared or this or that? They don't want to know. The less they know, the less they're, at risk, I guess you could say. So, but the only TV station I've run to in the whole world that needed E&O was HBO, but they were paying so much money. You're getting over 20 grand for one little short. You would go out, and at the time it was only like $1,900 to buy a policy. Now it's quite a bit more, but I don't get E&O insurance, so I don't know if you guys do, but I doubt it. Yeah.
We don't have it right now, but we have had it in the past.
Because you can't, it's too expensive.
Yeah, I haven't been in the conversations. I don't really know the answers.
But
I
if
know
you have
that
a problem,
I
you
know
just
that-
pull it off the air.
Yeah,
So immediately you just
we
pull
have
it off.
other legal things that we're working with, like Larry Lessig and all the fair use guys at Stanford. So it's a whole different game.
Because all the filmmakers never know what they're signing. You know what I mean? They'll sign one thing with one person, one with another. They just have no idea. So.
Add to this that for a lot of young filmmakers and media makers right now, including myself, we're like bypassing all of that. Like, I don't need a festival at all to get in on this. Like, that's why when I left film school and I actually started working at PBS, and I was like, I'm gonna get my own show, we're gonna have festivals, and then I found video blogging, and I was like, I don't need any of that. I don't need anybody to tell me I can put it out. I don't have to pay anyone. I don't have to like get Sundance to tell me that my short was good and win some award. Like, it doesn't matter. I have viewers and I have people like responding to my videos every day.
But everyone's doing it for a different reason. So some
Yeah,
people want to
absolutely.
qualify
But
for
I'm
Oscar
saying-
considerations.
Right, I know, but I feel like the majority of people putting stuff up on YouTube or like iFilms or Blick or wherever, like even like high quality, like I make short documentaries. That's what I do. It's not like I'm just like I also talk to the camera too, but
You're talking
I
about different
Yeah.
kinds of content.
so it's like yeah, it's definitely. But I feel like a majority of the people, who are in film school are like being told, well, you gotta like have it be on film or HD, and then like I was really discouraged when I left film school because of that. And then I found that there were other ways, and so
I think they're trying to teach it the mainstream way.
Well,
That's
yeah, I
why.
think we're talking about, as Jay said, just sort of these different categories of production and kind of different, probably career paths that people are taking. There's sort of really amateur video blogging, making material for a community. Then I think there's a middle section, kind of independent maker, maybe wanting to move into feature filmmaking, maybe wanting to have showings at galleries, museums, and that sort of strand where you're really trying to do it yourself, but it's in a more kind of professional has so many connotations that it's hard to use it, but maybe in a more professional, but you don't want to be a Hollywood filmmaker either. So I think there are different kind of slices in this realm, and we're kind of muddying them, but I think part of what's happening is that world is getting muddied, and it used to be very professional, independent, and then maybe a little bit of amateur. Now that whole up to professional, that whole world is a little bit much more blurry. And I think part of the discussion is really how do you do what you need to do for your path. If you're a filmmaker at USC but you don't want to go to Hollywood, you want to do this, maybe putting your short on YouTube is really right.
Talk about that, like what is the purpose of a festival? Like we kind of talked about how filmmakers aren't getting a lot of its money. So what is the benefit? Is
I
it-
think it's also for you to meet other filmmakers that are in the same boat, going through the same process you're going through. And unfortunately, what you will see sometimes on the festival circuit, it's the same kind of group of films that seems to travel around and play, and then you get really frustrated, and it's just like an actor. Every day there's rejection, and then some days you're accepted. Why? There's no rhyme or reason. And I think if you look at various festivals, they kind of follow a trend. And if you made that thriller movie about the mad cat, they had one about a mad pig a couple of years ago. It's just, I think they kind of, it also depends on the programmer too, for each segment.
I would just say, Been a curator. I think there's also the curatorial process of bringing things together that maybe in juxtaposition say something else, and making a context, building a community around things that maybe don't go together. So you're meeting filmmakers, but you're also being able to talk about your work and see your work in a new way. And often I think filmmakers work in isolation, and a festival brings them together in a way. And I think, Jonathan, your work in terms of creating an entire environment around a festival, really, it's a really an experience just going to the event. You have music, you have images, you have video, so it's really much more than just, oh, I'm in a festival and then I'll go to the next festival. It's really a much bigger experience. So, yes.
You know, I was thinking of an analogy to like ethnic studies programs in universities. Back in the 60s and 70s when they all developed, there was a real need for them. Now there's a tremendous debate as to whether or not they're necessary. So I think that festivals and different kinds of curated programs were a necessity at one time. But with the advent of the internet and the ways of distributing worldwide, at any level of quality has brought that whole system into question. And I really agree with what you were saying, that if you wanted to go another way, then that's great. But I think the problem with institutional learning, film school, I teach at a film school, is that it's very difficult to change that from what you've been doing.
Yeah.
There's a whole pool of knowledge that people have drawn from and have experienced. The older people that are teaching in these institutions, and because of the internet and all this kind of spread of knowledge to everyone else, oftentimes the students know much more about the new technologies and ways of working than the professors do. So I think we're in that funny kind of transitional period.
Yeah.
Although I still think that the craft of filmmaking plays into good video making, whether it's on the internet or on the big screen. So I think that's a discussion that's ongoing.
Well, I think an extension of that is that the festival circuit is also a gatekeeping function. It serves a gatekeeping function in terms of sort of letting certain films show and certain films not show. And I think we're seeing that shift too, where you have YouTube channels where people can curate sort of lists of projects, and you can find sort of alternate curators and different visions in that way. So I think that's really exciting as well. Yes?
There's also something to be said for festivals that have a particular sensibility to them. I mean, I live in Baltimore, and until very recently there was a Micro Cinefest, which is somewhere between Ed Wood and Stan Bradley. If you fell on that spectrum, that was the place to go. And that, I think has a special value beyond festivals in general. My question, which is completely different, that just occurred to me, is something that's closely related to distribution is attention. And that obviously functions differently online and offline. I just wondered, with all the glut of media right now, what do you, each three of you, do to make people want to see these films that you're distributing and make people just know that they're out there?
Well, I pick up just a handful of films a year because for me, it's not quantity, it's quality, and we have different buyers looking for different things, and most of my stuff's mainly going on TV, interstitial programming overseas, or the airlines, things like that. So for me, it's always a story, no matter which way you film it. It's got to be an interesting topic, whether it's something you're shooting in your bedroom half naked, I don't know if that's the gimmick or whatever, but you got to have a good story. And I think also back to sitting in a theater or at a film festival, there's nothing more sexy and romantic than being in a room and the lights go down and there's a big, huge screen and you see it, because still at home, most of us don't have a screen that large yet, so, and the coming together and no interruptions in life and phone or kids or this or that, so I just think it's a whole other experience.
I think that it's like if you were to go to a class about how to make people go to your website. I mean, for us right now, it's like, is it useful? The websites that are successful are really useful. Like, if you start writing about whatever you're into, people are going to start going there. And if you update it all the time, people are going to see it because they'll start hearing about it. It spreads. And if it's unique, it's the 3 U's. Seth Godin is this guy that we're really into. I don't know if you guys know him, but he's got this blog about this kind of stuff. And he says the 3 U's: useful, unique, updatable.
That's true.
I think that one of the things we've always done is having a filmmaker or a film has some notoriety, and in a mix of programming that will bring people. And oftentimes, I mean, when we first started ResFest, we had a short film from Spike Jonze, and that drew a lot of people to come out. And in the end, they didn't. That wasn't their favorite film. They discovered a new filmmaker who on its own wouldn't have been a draw, but it was that mix that brought them out. And I think that whether it's a festival or a blog, I think that especially with the amount of media that's being created, there really is a need for curation, and you can identify, you can find the one, it's the right one that is, you know, the stuff that you like. But I think that there's so many things out there now that it's really, whether it's, again, a festival or a blog or someone that kind of picks out the ones that you like, and you can discover new things from there.
I think the fun thing is there's no black and white way to it. It's very gray, and whatever works for you, and, you know, then that's what you do. So whether you're a Bill Plimpton who goes around to all these festivals himself and he's so into it, whether he does his features or his shorts, and then he sells all his stuff, puts up a stand, but he shows up everywhere, does signings, and then you have Don Hertzfeld with the animation show, and he's got like a whole blog and a whole other thing going on, and so it's a crossover all the time. So
Yes.
I have a question about indie feature-length films. You know, there's been a lot of talk in the indie feature world about how there's going to be all these new methods of distribution through the internet and stuff like that. But I haven't really heard of any that seem to actually. I mean, you know, the problem with features is they cost a lot of money to make. So you need to be able to make money from them, otherwise you're not going to get financing in the first place going into it. And which is, of course, the difference with, you know, with video blogs and stuff like that. You know, to make a feature film, you need a whole bunch of money. So I'm just wondering, like, do you guys know of, like, what's happening with that? And, like, is there anything really that's going to happen?
well, you don't need a film print anymore. You don't. Every theater shows things on DVDs.
Well, but to actually produce it, I'm saying you need a lot of money. You know, once it's done, of course. But to make it, to get financing in the first place, they want to know that, you know, and like basically distribution in indie features has been sort of this total bottleneck for years and years. And I mean, you go to Sundance, you go to any festival, and most of those films don't get distribution. But everyone keeps talking about how the internet is going to solve this somehow. And I'm wondering, like, is it?
I don't think that theaters aren't hooked up to
There are
being
already
streamed, are they?
there are already theaters that are specifically digital.
It's like Emerging Pictures
Yeah.
is one that's.
We left out with them last year, and they just showed all our stuff on DVD, and they loaded on their hard drives.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why Hollywood doesn't want to get mainstream theater to be digital is because then everything's in a digital format, and then someone's gonna grab it. Somewhere along the way, the guy in the back room will grab it, put it on the internet. They like mailing films.
But the mainstream theaters are digital. When you look at like Cars and all those animations, they've been shown digitally, and every time you're watching all your previews, they're all digital.
They use ads, but the film, okay, I mean.
I'm sure there's a way they can encode it or something.
Yeah.
But isn't that what Emerging Pictures, that's the whole point of what they're trying to do, is that they're just trying to be like, just email us your movie and we will
Right.
send it out to 5,000 theaters.
Because look at how much money you save on prints and everything. So
So it's kind of coming up more from the bottom.
Right, so they're just going to, but to me it's like, well, are they just going to be the new gatekeepers then, Emerging Picture, that type of distribution?
well, the key too is that they're trying to figure out what digital system to use,
Yeah.
because the studios had one system, and then they want the theater owners to pay for that system, and they can't. So
Yeah.
some of them have the hard drives in.
So what you're saying though, because for me, obviously, I'm a big advocate of putting stuff up online for free. Mostly because then people get to know you and you get a name and you can raise money. I mean, we've done that with several projects that needed money.
Say you've already made a few films.
Yeah, I mean,
No, I mean, there is, of course, that level of people who are just trying to get it, just trying to start something, but there's also the level of like, who made a bunch of films, but who are trying to find out, like, other methods of distribution, which I feel like we're sort of being promised on some level by, like, the digital universe, it's all gonna change, and this little bottleneck of distribution of indie film, which everyone in indie film thinks is a big problem.
Mhm.
Like, I'm just wondering, is there anything actually happening in terms of that?
Yeah, I guess I really don't know. I mean, the film that I made, I just never had time to give it the fair attention it needed to get distributed. It's sort of just making a little bit of money on it here and there on the internet, but yeah, I mean, it's going to take people with a lot of passion and energy. Yeah, I have a website and people find it.
People buy the DVD,
Yeah.
like, from your website?
Yeah, they email me but yeah, I have the same questions because I don't quite get how it's all going to work out.
There's a feature documentary that we screened last year that's having its world as a work in progress. That's having its world premiere at South by Southwest, and they were really trying to get into the trio, Sundance, Toronto, or Berlin to sell their film and haven't been able to. So they've decided that they're going to four-wall it and self-distribute it theatrically. They've already pre-sold their home video rights, but they've sold. They found some sponsors to basically cover the cost of doing their own theatrical tour for the film, which will then will help promote the DVD sales.
But the other thing too is you can call like the guy at the University of Oklahoma Museum of Art. He loves to show different stuff. If you get in with one person like that and see how it goes, but at the end of the day, a distributor's not going to get in bed with you unless you've got something that's marketable, because it's a waste of their time. You're going to be unhappy. Everyone's going to be unhappy. And then there are films that are festival films that just don't go mainstream. They just don't cross over.
Yeah, but I'm wondering, like, just having gone, like, I have two friends this year whose features were at Sundance that didn't get sold. I mean, most things at Sundance didn't get sold.
Well, just because you're at Sundance doesn't mean that you're the best film of the year
No, I
either.
know, but they were actually really good films. Like, I saw them, but they were both really good films. So they're both now like, oh my God, shit, you know, all the major distributors, which are 5, who actually distribute these kinds of films, passed. So
Right.
then it's like, all right, so now we spent, $1 million, $2 million on this film. Now it's like, oh well, good effort.
Then maybe they should go directly to an exhibitor and see, like Greg Lemley. He's actually the most accessible guy. He's right here in Los Angeles. However, playing one of his theaters costs a lot of money, and it's hard. But he actually programs he programs theaters in Palm Springs, up north. He has other theaters around the country that he programs looking for independent films because he's hopefully on the cutting edge of it. So he'll take the time and look at it. Or a lot of times they don't like to take the time. If you have really good marketing materials and a good gimmick, sometimes it's easier for them, I think, to put it up on a screen, believe it or not, because then it's they're removed from it, I guess you could say. But
I think I wanted to ask you guys if you knew of resources for people to get information like that, alternative distributors who might be interested in some kind of a project like this. And I know that Filmmaker Magazine, the blog, is actually incredibly helpful with often listing information about new companies. And Scott McCauley there is really on top of that question in particular, so you might look there. But there, for a long time, there were sort of agents that would help filmmakers make that step. You've shown at a festival, it has a certain credibility. Now what's the next step? And kind of help you link up with a distribution network or exhibitors directly. Because there is that circuit, too, of exhibition spaces. I know. And so what is the new?
Before we started, Carol and I were speaking about micro cinema up in San Francisco and Chulpakar, and he's been really great at building a network of retail in design museums and art galleries like the Getty here in LA and the Design Museum in London to sell DVDs, and he also licenses work for screenings and been really successful. And he just told me he's doing more stuff online now as well. So.
Have you been to Brave New Theaters as well? What? Have you been to Brave New Theaters? It's our website to help filmmakers distribute their own films. You can bring it up. I don't know if you can bring it up on the screen, but there's the most anybody got out of it was 6,000 house parties, I think, is what he did. And you can put your film up on our site, and people can go there and sign up to screen it in their homes. And so the trouble is, it's up to you to do the effort to get it out there and figure out how you're going to get people to actually screen it. The best way to do it is to get as many people as possible to screen it on the same day. Libraries, schools, homes, and there have been some success stories for people using Brave New Theaters as their way to get there. I don't know if there's any fictional stuff up there to be.
Another thing is to do the college circuit.
Probably
There
not.
is There's such a vast, amount of places to screen in the college district, whether you go to UNC Chapel Hill or whatever. The key is, it's not going to come to you. You're going to have to research. You got the internet, thank God. It's a wealth of information. Call the Egyptian Theater, the American Cinematheque. They're always looking for something new and different. They like local people who maybe can fill the theater. But at the end of the day, they're not going to show anything unless they think they can actually fill a theater, because that's a huge risk that they're putting up. And staff and, someone, either whether they're pushing the button and running it on DVD or actually projecting something on film. So it's well, what you do is, if someone says, oh yeah, I want to, because you could say, it depends. Maybe you want to do the first one, you might have to do it for free, I don't know, or very little money. But you say, okay, how many people in the theater, how much per person, give me a minimum guarantee versus percentage of box office, and that's how it's done in the theatrical world. So, but it's a matter of calling different places, or sometimes film festivals are looking for a unique thing to show. Maybe you can put together a program and have a film festival, they'll pay a fee to show it. There's some that will do that. So.
Any questions? Well, I had another question actually stemming from what Jay said about this idea of branding yourself. Do you think that that's really important at this point to have a website? Later you mentioned that. Is it really, and what does that mean, branding yourself as a maker? Maybe I should ask Jay.
It's essential because, if your friends who had their film at Sundance, if they had a website and had a huge following of people who want to see the film, you could leverage that with theaters and DVD companies and go, we've got this huge audience that wants this film, and we can quantify it.
They have,
Yeah.
you've got to have a website.
Yeah.
They have like some celebrities in it. I mean, they should. It just didn't work out. If they didn't buy any films.
Well, maybe they think they're looking for mainstream, but maybe they're a midnight movie. You know what I mean? To get into the market. Things.
I think that when we talk about in our community, number one, we have to be honest. It's with ourselves. It's got to be good.
Oh, yeah.
Got to be something people are going to watch. I think a lot of creators can't get over the fact that maybe what they made wasn't very good. And so that's number one, is what we talk about amongst ourselves. And number two is, use the internet for community. We haven't talked about Facebook. If you can show that you have thousands of people who are part of your group, that's sure a huge thing. And it is not very hard. And it's a couple late nights of just emailing people and,
I think it's also a matter of training the public. With Radiohead releasing their album like that, people are going to start to realize, we're going to pay what it's worth. That's going to start to be a business model here. And, it's not, nobody gets it yet. But maybe, I don't know, I'm hoping that the audience is going to start to understand, it's there on them.
You have to trust your audience too. With Radiohead, obviously they're very lucky that they're the biggest band in the world already. But they trusted their audience to know that we love them enough. We're going to pay them $10.
Another wealth of information is to get reviewers to review it. There's still reviewers out there, and that is such a key of getting people to notice your film. Rather than you just blogging about yourself, you need to get it.
That's one of the main things that we do.
It's free advertising.
Yeah, we have a team of bloggers that are in
Spreading
on
the
what we're
word.
And they're the people, the people who trust those bloggers go to them, and those bloggers say, hey, Brave New Films is coming out with this thing, y'all should check it out, and they do. That's
This is the
huge.
Radiohead model for people who aren't famous like Radiohead exists in the form of blog tip jars, which is both encouraging and not encouraging, because on the one hand, there might be two people on the planet who actually make a living off their blog tip jars, but on the other hand, it does show that there's a way of generating fan-based income that way.
But when it's more active too, like a tip jar for me, people ignore it mostly. But if you're actively saying, hey, we have a film or we have a CD and we would love it if people, bought it from us, I think that's
Well, in the Radiohead model, they actually only had it up there for a certain period of time, and actually the goodwill it bought, now they're selling jump drives with other music. And I think that gave them a lot of sales just from the goodwill that they bought by offering it for free.
I think that Brave New Films has done a good job, because it's we're starting to train, such a bad word, but we're creating a new habit among people where people are willing to pay for what they want to see. No mainstream person's going to make out Fox, but you guys will. I'll give you $10. I want to see that.
right.
And it's just so different though for the indie film. I mean, I don't know how it's going to translate, but clearly, I mean, people want to see these films, and I think people feel like, wait, and I think people do want to see them. I think people are like, how do we find out what's good? And you know, we're all just being fed like the 5 A-list movies every day, and
But it is like you
I
said,
don't know.
the bloggers and all the films that you were just on that page with like a bunch of the films. The sole reason I see most of those is because my friend handed me a DVD, or like someone in my community was like, let's have a screening of like Sir, No Sir. Like there's a handful of them that we have screenings because we were all like, spread this around, blog about it, you know, literally send this DVD to your friend across the country. And that's how like all those, the Walmart, I remember we were living in New York when the Walmart movie came out, and we traveled all the way to the Bronx to go see it in a like community center. And it was exciting, like to see all these, like it was in a teacher's union hall or whatever.
That's great.
And it was really like empowering, you know, and I feel like it's really exciting, like passing a DVD around. It's like,
And you were in that community with people like you in the room, and you loved it, you know? So it's just like that exhibition they had at MoCA, the fellow who did all the anime, what's his name?
Murakami.
Yeah, that was amazing, just going down there with all the kids who were like so into it and all that. It's one of those things, you want to be together at a happening.
The exciting thing too is that, you know, with the internet now, there's room for different kinds of movies too. Before it was like comedy, drama, romantic comedy, and now there's political activism, there's anime, there's like all kinds of things. So I think all of us that are making stuff, we need to make sure we're making something for a niche or community that we know there's a need for. Instead of, I think in the old days, we would all be making stuff for these invisible executives. Invisible executive will love it and will sweep me out, put me in a hotel.
But I also think some things are meant to be seen on a small screen, and then to have something be seen on a huge screen, it's a totally different experience, and some things look really great on a little screen, but they don't translate well to a big screen.
And what we've learned is that, you know, just putting it out and getting enough people to watch it on the small screen, then people want to see it on a big screen. So first you can test to see if anyone gives a shit, and then if they do, we're sad.
And there's so many different avenues and arenas. Like, there's a huge market now in churches. I don't know if you guys realize that. There's this whole crazy religious market, yeah. And things that you... Yeah, but it doesn't have to be super religious, but it has to be something where it tells a story that fits in with their sermon, and then they play it for all these churches. I think it's just an amazing market. So they pay, yeah. Those churches pay, yeah. So there's so many different avenues to go. I mean, there's cruise ships, there's this, there's that, but it's you researching and going after it, and maybe you can't sign up with one person who's going to do it all for you. You got to try and... When you're passionate about something, you can get other people like all excited to see it. When you have someone else who's not really that into it, it's harder to market it. But when you're excited, it's wow, and they're like, oh, I guess I should see this. But if you just have someone who's repping your project and they're like, oh, I got this new thing, oh, okay, you know, it's whatever. So I think a lot of it comes out of you too.
One good example actually that's on there is Four-Eyed Monsters. It's like, what they did was they produced a film, oddly about themselves. It wasn't a documentary, but it was actually really well done. But what they did was they had a podcast for the whole year while they were producing it, a video blog podcast, and they had a huge audience by the time the movie was released.
About how they made it.
About how they made it, you know, like the dramas of making a film and being broke, and they had screenings all over the country and living room screenings.
So they were teasing you, right, to get you excited.
Yeah, and also getting to know them,
Yeah.
like get interested in us and our process, and because it's very artsy. I mean, it's an artistic view of their relationship.
And another key thing too is that all of those films up there have ad campaigns in a sense. So I think you need to do that, don't you think? To have an ad campaign and your website to market. It's all marketing. It comes down to marketing.
Four-Eyed Monsters, also the movie, was sort of an advertisement for their site. And actually
Isn't that funny?
community
Yeah, at the end of it, basically they were like, it like all looped back into like the website that you already knew about. So yeah, it's really an interesting.
Because when you go home, any project you've worked on, just go Google it, see what comes up, see it, and then if nothing's really coming up, then that just shows no one else can find your project either. So think about it, or ask Jeeves or whatever people search. I don't know.
Works, like the internet works really well for more documentary stuff. You know what I mean? For stuff that has like, would have like a base behind it that, you know, cares about an issue or cares about, you know, or could get to know. I mean, but with a fictional drama, it's just a different animal sort of, and I wonder, maybe it just doesn't work.
Or maybe
you know,
just
for that.
there aren't enough examples right now.
Yeah, I feel like there's something out there. It's like if the characters are compelling enough and the story is compelling enough, then people are going to care. You know, like if they can distill like what is the story that's so interesting? Why do people want to see this and start cutting that up into smaller bits on the internet? I don't know. It seems like there's got to be some new creative way that filmmakers are going to start getting it out there. I don't know what it is yet.
It sounds like it has to start before you're shooting. It's in the pre-production. It's in the idea of how you're taking the front out to your audience. Maybe it's while you're shooting little mini segments that you're going to tease people with on the side.
Like
and
Project
create.
Greenlight. Although those movies
Well,
didn't do very well.
Or it could be behind the scenes, but it could also be snippets of your characters. So you're actually almost making them real. So by the time they get on the screen in the main movie, people already have a sense of who they are and already enrolled in them. They're already looking for the
Blair
story.
Witch.
Yes.
Wasn't there something called the Blair Witch Project?
Yeah, I think actually statistics show that the website presence before film goes into production radically affects the theatrical. So.
Yeah.
You're bringing up the church market actually made me think of one of the biggest independent, however you define it, success stories of the last few years, which was The Passion of the Christ, which was actually a really interesting example of mobilizing a community that felt marginalized to make something that was produced independently into a hit. And I'm wondering if there have been efforts, and maybe this is best aimed at Leda, although at the moment you're not doing it, kind of offline work, where you're trying to think what other communities can you mobilize in this way, and what other institutions outside of normal institutions you can use to reach them. And in particular, if any of you have been watching that Passion of the Christ model and thinking about ways to adapt it for what you do.
I mean, that's all we're trying to do. We're trying to reach out to men. One of our main goals is to bring the progressive movement together. We're working with really different, I mean, you all know the left is completely fragmented, and we're trying to work with different groups to work on the same issue, and it's very interesting. But yes, that's absolutely what we're focusing on. Is like, well, what is the Latino market looking at? Are they using their phones? Are they, we're trying to figure out how to get them content about stuff that matters in the progressive movement at the places where they're going.
Questions? A question or a remark came up earlier about the need to really think about cross-platform. So you think about your project as maybe it's a video, whether it's a short or a feature. How much should filmmakers or video makers be thinking also about it'll have this online presence, it'll have this market, then this market, and this market, and really be thinking a project cross-platform rather than just as a video that then has distribution and exhibition. Do you guys know?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I was just at the Atlantic Film Festival in Halifax at the Strategic Partners Conference, and it was like really everybody, all the producers were really scared about these issues, and like, well, how are we going to do this? And Peter Greenaway was the main speaker at the lunch, and he was like, go to Second Life. That's the only place you should be going. And all of them were like, oh, what are you talking about? And he's making like the first ever movie made on Second Life or something. But yeah, I mean, my personal opinion is yes, if I was going to go make a movie right now, I would absolutely start doing it on every possible platform I possibly could, I mean, and it wouldn't be a movie in the traditional sense anymore. But I mean, I know there's a million people out there that don't want to do that. They just want to make a traditional film, and I wouldn't do that now. I would, in order to get a wide audience, I think you have to think about all the different platforms.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, I think storytelling is evolving as the film festival is evolving too. And a good example of that is like Cloverfield. They make this monster movie, but really it was all about this ARG, this alternate reality game that they started 6 months before the movie had gone out, where it, these fake websites, and there's this whole story, and people get into it and try and there's no reason why anyone here couldn't do the same kind of thing. you know, that it's not just like this thing that plays an hour and a half, it's done. It's like it's a whole the story goes beyond just that, and the community can get involved. You know, Lonely Girl is a good example. You know, people like that immersive experience.
I wonder in the future if we'll be able to sit through a 90-minute film, because look at, I have kids at home who are on the computer, and it's like constantly, you know, their attention span is getting shorter and shorter.
From 1970, and I couldn't believe how slow it was.
But that's the same thing any TV show does, right? And those people spend hours watching, you know, X-Files episode after X-Files episode, and along comes the X-Files movie, and they all trip out to the theater. So in a way that it requires a longer attention span. I mean, ARGs can eat up a lot of someone's life.
Well, I guess they have that built-in audience, like Sex and the City. They'll be coming out with their feature film after it's been on TV. And as they said, when we were kids, our parents would say, oh, I used to trudge to school in the snow, da, da. And now we're telling our kids, I used to have to go to the library and deal with a librarian and look at periodicals. And my kids are like, what's an encyclopedia? You know, so, because now they have everything. There was no internet or computer. So the world is changing so much, so fast every day. It's amazing. This whole generation can't even relate to what I grew up with, so nothing.
I'm sorry I came late, so I don't know if you've touched on this already, but I'm kind of curious how much campuses and students are part of this whole distribution scene that you're describing. I mean, is there a lot of uptake among student populations for independent work? And I'm just curious what your read on that.
Well, well, at least for traditional screenings, most college campuses, I'm sure USC still does, have your traditional Saturday night screening where all the kids can go to watch it in a movie theater or a ballroom hall or something like that. So I try to deal with those traditional outlets. But
is it like, do you find, so all these kids are on Facebook and stuff right now, and so there's much more technology for lateral networking among students. Is that helping your job or not, or is it not? Is it kind of the same as it's always been?
well, for me, I don't micromanage what they do at each university. When they say, oh, Carol, we want to program this thing of shorts of yours, I'm like, okay. So once they send it out and I cut my deal with them, then it's up to them to market it at their own campus. And years ago, there used to be Burly Bear TV. I don't think that exists, but I'm sure they also have their own TV networks within each campus, too, that shows in the student halls and things like that. So I'm sure that's a wealth of information and obviously internet sites with Facebook and all that, so.
I don't really know how to answer your question. I mean, we're not, you know, for us it's like we're working on a couple projects that are educational, specifically geared towards education. And we're building like teachers' guides and stuff along with them, but I don't really have very much to do with
whether there's one central spot that they all go to. I think every university is probably different in every part of the country. I don't know, so.
And do you see your stuff on BitTorrent?
Do you have to police some of the films that you represent in your library? Like, does someone
Where do they show up?
Yeah.
We had the animation and live action Oscar shorts from a few years ago, and we released it on DVD, and one of the filmmakers was like, oh my God, it's on YouTube. I'm like, well, lots of luck finding out who put it up there. I mean, call YouTube, tell them to take it down, but they're bootlegging it, aren't you upset? And there's nothing I can do about it. You can't micromanage the internet. You can't micromanage the world, and guess what? If it gets shown on there, maybe it's playing in Latvia right now in their language. I have no idea because they can't territorialize the internet, at least not that I'm really aware of. They say they can, but it's not happening. The whole world
to consider is that somebody probably will take your, if it's good, somebody's going to put it up there anyway. If
that's
they
a
did that with
compliment.
us, I think it's Walmart that somebody else put up.
I think in the independent, I don't know. I think it just depends how it affects you personally. And if you get really livid and you can figure out where in the world who did it. I mean, I don't know. That's a good question. I think that's up to you.
I think almost more offensive is when someone puts it up and they get something wrong. Like there was a film that we showed at ResFest years ago, Japanese tradition it was like a mockumentary about sushi, and someone put it up on YouTube and they put someone else's name as the director, and that's like really
That's
wrong,
horrible.
you know?
Then that's stealing.
Yeah.
That's totally different. That's. I would think in the future things will start cracking down, or there'll be some big lawsuit one day or something with YouTube. Maybe, I don't know, that will change it. But right now they're kind of removed from it too, right? Everyone's just putting
People are
whatever they
watching
want
it.
up
They're
there.
taking stuff off of YouTube.
They are now?
Oh yeah.
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 I think-
mean, if we make a mistake and put something up that we haven't cleared, like, people find out right away.
Right. And then you can
Yeah.
that's it. You can instantaneously take it down. But if I were to have that filmmaker, I guess is try to call YouTube, and they've had zero success, probably because they're nobody from Belgium. Yeah, that's what they said.
Perception that it's sort of like, so there's this low-res version circulating on YouTube, and that's a good advertisement for the film. It's pretty much a traditional rights management.
I don't know. I was in China the day that the latest Star Wars came out. It was already out on DVD on the street before it even played in the theaters in the U.S. So it's in all different areas and arenas, and sometimes negative advertising's the best in the world too, right? I don't know.
Well, I'm curious what other tools you guys might be using that you weren't using a few years ago. You've talked about Facebook, and Peter Greenaway is talking about Second Life. Are there other things that you're using to kind of get the word out about screenings or projects? Twitter, cell phones, any of Jonathan, during events, do you?
I mean, those, you know, the same, Facebook, MySpace, all those things. Yeah.
Blog. I also think if you can ever get an entree into NPR, because that's such an audience that crosses over to older generations, younger generations, and they do all these interesting little stories, and if they have a website to point you to, I just find that a phenomenal outlet if you can have that opportunity, whether it's in your community or the NPR that goes nationwide. So something to think about.
I just wanted to know more about Jonathan's website. If you don't mind.
Well, right now it's more of a portfolio site of projects that we've done, but we are, in the next couple weeks, we're launching an editorial component and going to be showing more video content as part of the site.
What sort of video content?
Well, I mean, one of the things that we, as I mentioned earlier, we've always been really about community, and having done ResFest around the world in like 18 countries, we want to kind of, and one of the things that Res never did well was have a great website. So that's what I'm trying to do right this time. And as far as bringing together this community of creators online, and then can have real world events as well.
So is it sort of ResFest?
2.0, yeah.
And like art? Like art?
I mean, yeah. I think I've always been interested in really celebrating experimentation in narrative. So it's, and then as part of, as Holly mentioned, as part of the experience, it's not just screenings. There's actually an experience that when you go to an event, there's people there talking about their work. There's projections and art installations and things happening around that screening as well.
Do you work with any artists that are doing stuff that isn't just, that is more about projections and sort of lighter stuff rather than just something that would be on the website?
Yeah, I mean, I found, I mean, one of the challenges has been so there's some work that's really interesting that doesn't work in a theatrical setting. Like it would be great in a gallery or an outdoor projection, but if you're sitting in a theater, it would kill you, because it would, like, you're watching something for 25 minutes that if you could walk around and experience it, it would be much more pleasurable.
And you also work with pieces
Yeah.
that are site-specific, sort of.
I came in a little late also, so I apologize. Sorry, but I was wondering if you've seen any creative uses of the Creative Commons non-commercial license in distribution online, and how, if there are any business models also that are coming up around that as a way to promote, but then also be able to license commercially separately.
I should know the answer to that because we use Creative Commons so much, but I don't know what's being built up for people to make money off of that right now. But we have developed relationships with people just because they had licensed their stuff, on Creative Commons, and are now working with those folks. We pay them a little bit when we can. but I don't know the answer. Do you know the answer?
I mean, right now, my organization, we're licensing all of our content with the non-commercial license, and then we're working on a couple different licensing agreements. It seems, and there are also other business strategies that have been designed around that in music, but I guess it's not happening in video so much.
I mean, I guess my first instinct is that it will, in the way that it's happening with us, where we've found like photographers and videographers out there we just happen to stumble upon them because they've used the Creative Commons license, and we need content for B-roll, and all of a sudden now we have a relationship with them, and now they're starting to create stuff because they know we're on the lookout for stuff like that. So we are sort of developing this monetary exchange with them. So I would think that's how it's going to happen, is that it's going to happen naturally, where people are going to start to be like, oh, there is a need for this, there is a need for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I guess a lot of people don't, a lot of people seem to not really understand the differences between the different Creative Commons licenses.
Yeah.
But it's kind of complicated, but once you understand it, it can make a very coherent business strategy.
Yeah.
I suppose.
I hope it will prove to. I think it's a really amazing movement. So.
Any questions? I'll ask just one last question. Anything on the horizon that's exciting to you in terms of the world that we've been talking about, something that you're waiting for or looking forward to?
YouTube to figure out a way to monetize their stuff. I think they're going to, and I think that's going to change the landscape a lot, and that people will start getting paid for their stuff up there.
No, it just seems like more and more people, at least in the world of shorts, are coming out and actually offering money now for cell phones and internet usage again, things like that. So that's exciting for me as a distributor. And countries are opening up, like Russia and Germany's buying again, things like that. So, but no new avant-garde ways yet.
I think just figuring out that link between the online content and your TV, and like having it be really seamless and easy to do, so you can experience stuff. If once these things, more and more people adopt HD for online video, that you can experience it on your.
Yeah, we're definitely moving in that direction and counting on that happening soon.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to thank our panelists. This was terrific.